Now we will begin the trauma module. In the trauma module, our first step is to define what trauma is. Then we will talk about one-time trauma versus reoccurring trauma. Once we have a better understanding of what trauma is, we will talk about how trauma can affect our emotions, our bodies, and our mind. Next, we will cover post-traumatic stress disorder. And then with all of this new information, we will talk about the different strategies that can be used to cope with trauma. Then finally, we can have a more personal discussion about what trauma looks like for your teen. This can give you a chance to point out which coping strategies might work best for the individual teen. As mentioned earlier, the intervention process will take about 40 minutes. Prior to beginning this section, you will want to make sure that you have all worksheets needed to complete any activities for this module. Now, I am going to walk you through the PowerPoints for this module that you will be working through with the youth. You will notice that this section has 2 PowerPoints to work through. Each slide has an audio component. As we go through the slides, there will be times that I will point out places to pause for discussion. Let's get started. We are going to begin with the PowerPoint for the Introduction to Trauma.
What is trauma? An intense event that threatens or causes harm to our emotional and physical well-being. An emotional shock that has a deep effect on one's life for a long time. An event that is frightening, dangerous, or violent that poses a threat to our life or body.
You can always pause in between slides to have a conversation or to answer questions that your teen might have. Just make sure before clicking on the next slide that you finish your discussion and that you're both ready, because the audio does resume automatically.
Examples of one-time traumatic events include divorce, moving homes or schools, death of a pet, your relative passing away, a friend moving away. Then there are some larger ones, such as tornadoes, hurricanes, sexual assault, physical assault, sudden death of a parent or caregiver, hospitalization, or even witnessing someone being assaulted.
With the nature of the discussion, you do need to be careful with the way that you word your questions or your conversations with your teen, as this might be hard for them to want to delve into.
Examples of recurring traumatic events include physical or emotional abuse. Maybe your parents fight, maybe they hit each other. Sexual abuse, gang violence, bullying. Maybe you're constantly made fun of by your peers at school or even bullied by a family member.
Again, give your teen time to open for discussion, ask questions.
Trauma can even affect us emotionally. You can experience things such as nervousness, being worried about your safety, agitated, withdrawn, sadness, scared of sleeping alone at night, temper tantrums, or even disassociated, which is your ability to cope with the trauma by withdrawing from the world. Trauma can be so powerful, it has the ability to affect us physically. It can cause stomach aches, headaches, nausea and vomiting, or nightmares and trouble sleeping. Trauma can affect us mentally. It can have us relive the event, see images such as thinking we see our abuser in the crowd, remembering every detail of what happened and what they did to us, and having the need to tell the story over and over again. Experiencing trauma may bring on what is called post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. PTSD can cause the following symptoms without warning and for what seems to be no apparent reason. It causes intense fear, feelings of helplessness, feelings of being agitated and disorganized, trouble sleeping, trouble focusing, and a loss of appetite. PTSD can cause changes in your interactions with others. It can cause you to be more aggressive or more withdrawn. You can have regressive behaviors such as bedwetting, clinging, and sucking your thumb. You can feel emotionally numb, anxious, or depressed, and even have separation anxiety. If any of these sound familiar to you, you could be suffering from PTSD. However, there's no need to worry. Professionals can help you reclaim your sense of power and overcome your PTSD.
This is the end of the first slideshow. At this time, you'll give your teen an opportunity to ask questions and have an open discussion about everything that you've covered in this first portion of the slideshows. Now we're moving on to the second slideshow of the trauma module, coping with trauma.
Helping yourself. Identify your triggers. Identify what makes you feel safe. Learn how to identify and manage emotions. Develop a positive view of yourself. Take control of your own life where you can.
This section of the module will be bringing up a lot of personal information from the teen. Make sure you are listening and really answering any questions that they might have.
Triggers. Triggers are unique to each person and can be very personal. That means that what might trigger you might not trigger someone else. Triggers are activated through one or more of the 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Sight. Someone can look like your abuser, or you may see an object that was used during the abuse. Sounds. Something that resembles sound the abuser made, such as whistling or their laugh, or words of abuse, such as put-downs and name-calling. Smell. Anything that resembles the smell of the abuser, such as perfume, cologne, alcohol, or tobacco. Something that resembles the smell of the location, such as firewood or food cooking. Touch. Anything that resembles the abuse endured prior to or after, such as someone standing too close or a certain type of touch. Taste. Anything that relates to the abuser prior to or after, such as certain foods, alcohol, and or tobacco.
Now, the teen might want to bring up their own personal triggers. Again, just be open to the conversation and let them ask questions. And this is the PowerPoint where you will be bringing in those worksheets that you have brought along with you.
Safety. Identify who are the safe adults in your life. Maybe it's a parent, a teacher, a neighbor, a relative. Who or what provides you comfort when you feel scared or anxious? Maybe it's a pet, a blanket, a sweatshirt. Can you establish a routine for yourself to create consistency? This means getting ready in the morning, going to bed at the same time, reading books or telling stories, eating meals. Consistency helps us feel safe.
At this slide, you can have the opportunity to talk to the teen about the positive, safe adults in their life and really what they have that makes them feel scared, anxious, but also that what can provide them comfort and what those objects are and what kind of routines that you can have them start doing so that they have more consistency in their life. Positive self-view. What do you believe about you? Do you think kind thoughts about yourself, or are you unkind? Identify and challenge your negative beliefs about yourself, and ask, how are my own thoughts impacting the way I view myself? Maybe other people tell me negative things and I believe them. But these negative thoughts don't need to be your reality. How can you challenge a negative thought with a positive one? Identify what is a positive about yourself. If you can't find things on your own, ask a trusted loved one. Build positive relationships while avoiding negative ones when you can. Sometimes we surround ourselves with people who bring us down. If we aren't careful, negative relationships can start to skew our sense of reality and who we truly are. Give yourself grace. Have you made mistakes? Are you imperfect? You are not alone. Be understanding and learn to forgive yourself. You are separate from the mistakes you make. Be more assertive and learn to say no. Being strong and knowing your own boundaries can contribute to a positive self-view. You be proud of yourself for identifying your needs and standing up for those needs with others. Improve your physical health. With a healthy body comes a healthy mind. Take on challenges. Prove to yourself that you are strong and capable by doing difficult things. These challenges will help you to grow as a person, and with that growth comes a more positive view of yourself.
Control, the power of choices. This means that choosing is a right, an ability that you and only you have in your life. You have the choice on your actions and behaviors, whether or not you follow the rules and expectations, how you respond in a situation when you are upset and stressed, your goals and the effort you give to achieve them, who you are friends with, and most of all, your attitude.
This is the last slide of the second PowerPoint. At this point, you can have a nice discussion with your teen about positives of themselves, about how they view themselves, and different ways that they can change the way they think about themselves. You will work on your worksheets and have the end of the intervention portion of the trauma module. Now that we have worked through the intervention process, we move on to termination. This section will summarize what you have covered in the day's lesson and give you the opportunity to have any final thoughts or conversations. After this, you will complete the evaluation process.